What's going on, everybody? So today we're going to take a look at Ableton's Echo audio effect plugin and how you can use that to make your beats even more interesting. So if you're ready for that, let's jump right into this. Alright, so we're going to be using our Echo plugin here on this little bell instrument lead that I have going here. It kind of sounds like this. Alright guys, so right off the rip, we have these knobs right here which are going to control the modulation on how much echo we're actually getting. So we're getting 8th notes, 4th notes, 16, or so forth. Usually I like to stick between an 8th or a 4th if I'm trying to get just a normal delay on one of my leads or something like that. But you could definitely play around with some of the other ones. So you have this option here if you want to do sync and go between the notes, or if you want to do timed, and you can select a certain amount of milliseconds there. You have a couple options for how those notes are echoed. If you put it on regular notes, that's going to be like your normal echo. So it's going to let the note play and then it's going to echo afterwards. Otherwise, you have a triplet, which is going to echo in a triplet kind of way. And you have a couple other options there. This right here is going to offset it a little bit. So as you can see, when we start pressing this on this echo instrument right here, you can see that it offsets that side a little bit. So when you're looking at this thing in the middle here, this is a visual representation of what's going to happen. So these are basically echoes. So it's going to echo a little bit faster as it starts to die off. But as it gets dimmer here, you can tell you can hear it less and less. So that's kind of a visual representation of how this plugin actually works. So before we start playing with things, we're going to turn our dry wet up all the way to 100%. Okay, your feedback knob right here is going to control how much of that's going to go. So if you have this all the way up like that, it's just going to keep on echoing and echoing and echoing. So this can basically controls the out of the effect. So this is what we have right now. So you can see that it bounces from side to side and then it pretty much fades out right away. That's because we're in 4th grid. So if we turn this down to an 8th, you can see it goes a little bit faster between the ears. And let's turn the feedback up here so we can hear it a little more. You can see when you turn it up too high, that resonating frequency just kind of picks up and starts going. So you definitely don't want to set it that high when you're playing with it. So something like that might do you a lot of good. So down here you have some different filters. You can do a high pass and a low pass and set the resonant peaks at those if you want to use that. I don't usually play with that too much. You also have a reverb effect if you want to add some reverb on here. But just like with most Ableton plugins, I recommend that you don't use those extra little things. If you want a reverb, slap a reverb plugin on after this one, and then you can get way more control over it instead of just using a little knob that they make. Okay, so you can control if you want your echo to be pre, post, or feedback, and you can control how much decay it actually has. So let's play with this a little bit. So as you can see, as we turn this up a little bit, you can hear the sound last a little longer. Usually if it's down more, you can hear it better. You can hear exactly it going back and forth way easier. Okay, fuck that last part. Alright, so you have a stereo setting over here, and that's basically if you want to add some stereo width to the actual echo. So if you want the echo to take place higher or spread apart more on the stereo width or not. So you can probably only hear that if you have your headphones on. But yeah, you can get a little more stereo width out there, which is actually a very useful thing to have. You got your output knob, so if you need to crank it up a little bit more or turn it down so that you can do your leveling right, you can do that there. And obviously your dry or your wet. So you got these different options. You have the ping pong, which is going to go from left to right and bounce back and forth like that. You have your stereo mode, which is just going to bounce in the stereo field. And then you have mid side, which bounces between the mid sides. Alright, so if we go into our modulation tabs, we actually have a couple other things that we can do. We can actually modulize the delay and the filter. So we could turn this up to something crazy so that we can hear this better. Let's turn it up to like a 16th. And you can see nothing's happening right now. But if we turn the envelope up all the way, this is how much this modulation is going to affect the actual mix. So as we go up in the delay, you'll be able to hear what it's doing. So you can get some crazy delay effects like that, and you could turn down the mix just to have that affected just a little bit. You can hear it just wiggling, super going back and forth. And you have different waveforms that you can use for this modulation as well. All right, we also have a filter, so it's going to give it like a filter kind of effect as well. So if we turn this one up, let's turn the envelopes up again. So it's going to affect the filter of that as well. So you have these two dials that you can go ahead and hone in, and then you can play with the mix of those effects. You can get some pretty cool results out of that. Lastly, we're going to take a look at the character tab here, which is just going to add a little bit more to your echoes. So you have a gate. You can gate basically what level, how much dB you want to gate out. All right, so you can affect it with that, and you have your release knob, obviously. You can also duck the mix. You can say how much dBs you want to duck in there. So basically it's going to duck anything that's at that level or higher. So you can see as we turn it back up to 0, it's not going to duck any of the sound whatsoever. You also have noise, so you can add some noise into the mix if you want. And this morph here basically brings it from a white static to a kind of an electrical static sound. You also have a wobble effect, which is good in very small amounts. It's going to add a little bit of wobble to it. So if we turn this up all the way, it's just going to sound ridiculous. But if you give it a little bit of effect, it's going to give it a little bit of a wobble and add a lot of character to it. So we can also morph this as well. Oh, that sounds pretty cool right there. Alright guys, and that's going to conclude this tutorial on how to use Ableton's Echo plugin. Now you can get some crazy echoing effects, you can get some wobble in there, make it sound detuned, add extra noise to it. There's all kinds of different things you can do with that plugin. Anyways guys, if you found that useful, hit that like button for me, and subscribe to the channel if you're new here, because we're dropping new tutorials in Ableton every single day, bro. But besides that, I'll be catching you again in the next one. Peace out.